there personally to recommend books to people.
You know what I felt like saying? I felt like saying, so shall it be in Jesus' name. So does anybody else have, yes, I saw your hand go up and I love the frames.
Oh. Hello everyone, my name is Sholakwe Peters. Shoals. And if money was not an issue, I would have a plant store. My people know me. I'm known as Planty. I'd have a plant store, and at the side of the store would be an interior design space. And I'd take clients in that space for your interior design needs, and I'd sell my plants.
So round of applause for both of our brave speakers. That's absolutely wonderful. And you know, we chose to do that to really usher in the first part of the program. Because obviously we're here to really delve into Sister Tomi's book. I must tell you, we're talking about, if money was an option, all the things. Something that keeps coming to my mind about her, and I keep having to just bring myself to centering, I keep wanting to call her Dr. Tomi. So for some reason, if that comes out, maybe I'm speaking into the future. Maybe there's an honorary doctorate, or she's going to go and do something. But anyway, without further ado, this formidable woman who has gone on to create a very highly recognized, ready-to-wear brand, exclamations, holds, and let me be very accurate with it, holds a BSc in Business Administration from the University of Lagos, incredible, prestigious university, diploma in Fashion Technology from the London Centre for Fashion Studies. We're also going to find out about that journey and how that pivot happened, which in itself is so interesting. Has an online course where she's expanded herself, gone from one to many, called How to Start a Ready-to-Wear Label in Nigeria. Shall I also prophesy? Not just Nigeria, the world! Yes, let's go for it. Obviously, her influence has gone wide. Has anyone tuned into her podcast? Hands in the room. If you haven't, wonderful opportunity. We're going to be giving you information as to where it is and how you can, because there are gems upon gems. But what we're going to do right now is we're going to welcome up Sister Tomi with a round of applause for her to actually read excerpts from the prologue of her book. So welcome onto the stage. She's coming up.
They say when you meet your soulmate, the one you are meant to spend the rest of your life with, you would know. I'm no romantic. I find rom-coms cheesy. You know how it goes. A boy walks into a room and spots a beautiful girl. She looks across at him, their eyes lock. And though they are strangers, in that moment, everything and everyone pales. And there's an inner knowing that they have met the one. I have experienced this knowing twice in my life. The first time was when I met Jacob. He walked into the room, my office to be precise. Our eyes did lock. Then he walked over to me and introduced himself, reaching out for a handshake. I obliged and responded with my name. All day I thought of him. I loved the way he spoke, how he smiled at me sheepishly, how his name rolled off his tongue, and how it rhymed with mine, Tomi Rotmi. It was poetic. 3 years later, we walked down the aisle and exchanged vows and rings. The second time was when I met Exclamations, my fashion business, the one I left a banking career for. She first showed up in it as a tunic I made for myself. It was linen. The color was midnight blue. It fitted like a glove and felt like my future. What I disliked most about being a banker was the early morning rise and the long drives to work, the manic rush, the traffic that seemed to go on for days, and everything culminating with me at a desk, not loving what I did for a living. Every workday was a chore, except Fridays, of course. On Fridays, I got to see people wear my tunics. My side hustle was making simple, easy tunics that were dressed down Friday appropriate. All the bank tellers at Apex wore my pieces, and seeing them in my colorful creations made up for the grind of the week. I woke up extra early on Fridays, even before the alarm rang. The traffic never felt as bad. Getting to work, I would rush into the banking hall and just stand there, grinning from ear to ear. It was beautiful. It was worth 2 hours of Lagos morning traffic just to see people in my designs. I knew I had found it. I'd do this for the rest of my life. Seeing people wear my designs made me experience a type of happy I didn't know existed. So I thought, what if my side hustle became my only hustle? What if I got to do this every day? It took some people a lifetime to discover their passion, but at 24, I had found mine. And I felt sad at the prospect of not exploring it. So I did. I gave myself 1 year, and after that, I resigned from banking and started my apparel label, exclamations. And just like that, my entrepreneurial journey began at the age of 25. That was 20 years ago.
So you can actually stay where you are. So everybody, you can see that from somebody that was in an office, that was being romanced, there were then 3 good years that passed. A marriage happened, all the things. We're actually going to delve a little bit more into that story, but at this point, I'd love to also welcome up onto the stage a dear friend of Sister Tomi, and even in her own right, the founder of the Baby Cot Shop and a TEDx speaker, Tokes Aroturo. Come on up. Another distinguished lady. Come and find a space on the stage. Now, I'll just tell you a little bit about Tokes. So she's the founder of the Baby Cot Shop, a luxury baby furniture and nursery interior design brand that is in London. Not just any London, not any old London, Chelsea. Can we have a round of applause for that? She's also become one of the leading experts in creating bespoke and elegant nurseries, and became a TEDx speaker where she advocated for entrepreneurship and personal development. She also offers coaching and speaks on business growth and mindset. So we are going to delve into, I'm going to just create a little bit of space here, our first fireside chat with the ladies, where we're going to now be navigating the realms of business, motherhood, living life as a woman who is doing multiple streams and still surviving and being an inspiration to many. So ladies, I'm going to take us through, and if you... So yes, just bear with me. So the first fireside chat that we are doing right now is, and I wish this... Bear with me, ladies. There's just so many. Okay. Unlocking the story within. Unlocking the story within. Unlocking the story within. So, okay. First things first. I'm going to actually flip over to Tokes for this first question. We've all heard right now that you did a TEDx talk. You actually stepped out of your comfort zone. You went out there. You did that. What inspired you to tell your story through a TEDx platform, as opposed to books like we've seen with Sister Tomi? What made you take that step?
And here you are. Hi, everyone. So I sort of fell into talking about my story. I had an experience in 2008. I lost everything I ever owned. Lost my business, lost my livelihood, lost everything. I was living at the time in the United States with my family. At the time we had what I would say I had 4 sons at the time. 4 sons being 3 sons and my husband, because husband is a son. And we were living a life. It was a dream. And we lost it all in the recession and came back to England, but I came back pregnant with son number 4. So I have a household of 5 sons now. And when I came back, I was obviously broken. I was ashamed. I didn't know where to put my face. Our departure from the UK to emigrate to the US was a celebratory one. You know, everyone was there to see us off at the airport, and you know, we had parties and the celebration and so on. And then I came back empty-handed and broken and ashamed and pregnant. So I began to research the UK market. My business in the US was selling luxury baby and children's furniture in a high-end part of town. I was in the state of Georgia and came back to England, began researching the market, saw that there was absolutely nothing like what we sold in the US. Had a few hiccups in trying to restart a new business here. And I was being faced with rejections like, oh, you need to have a physical location, because at the time, e-commerce was a dirty word because people associated it with eBay, which sold secondhand goods, and Amazon, which sold secondhand books. So there was a lot of pushback on how to sell the products. Anyway, I eventually set up a website, and even though it was beautifully done, I was still ashamed whenever I went for networking meetings. People asked how you got into the niche of baby furniture, and I'd weave and dive because I didn't want to have to say that I lost a business. And then one day I read an article in a magazine where someone had written 2 versions of a story of one person. The first one detailed how she failed at university, just managed to scrape through and worked as a clerk for one company, and the next job she got was as a cleaner and so on. The second story said she graduated from one of the top universities in the country, landed a job on her first day at one of the most coveted law firms, moved on to work in a publishing firm the following year, and is now, her new book was going to be out the following spring. The other one ended with she hopes to write a book one day. And the difference between the stories was that one was a sub story, which was, you know, sad and miserable, and the other one was more upbeat, which the author called the rockstar story. And I immediately rewrote my story in its rockstar version. And for the first time, I felt, oh my goodness, I want to be whoever this woman is. So I memorized the story, not on purpose, but because every time I felt discouraged, I'll pick it up and I'll read it to encourage myself and say, this is who I really was. And without meaning to, I memorized it and ran into a journalist by accident, and who she asked off the cuff, how did you get into this? And I said, I just told my rockstar story. And she goes, oh my gosh, calls the editor and says, we've got a good story, we've got to run it. And a double spread was done of me in one of the national newspapers in the UK. Someone must have read it, nominated me for an award. And at the award ceremony, everyone's asking, how did you get into this? And I'm like, rockstar story comes out. And I realized that by telling my rockstar story, which was not, I didn't tell only the good part of the story, was the difference. I chose to include the truth as well, because I realized that people were being inspired by the truth. So I had the option of telling the story that impressed people or telling the story that impacted people. And so that's how so TED became a natural, thank you. Thank you. TED became a natural progression from podcasts and, you know, stages, because I was being invited to speak as well, because the tagline for TED is ideas worth spreading. And it's supposed to be an idea that is not common, that causes you to think, and something people haven't heard of before. So the idea of telling your story authentically, being a superpower, is what my talk is about.
Incredible. Can we have a round of applause? And you know, some of the things that kind of came out of that was she was in a place of the utter lows. And what happened was there was an empowerment that came to then actually see that this is something that needs to be shared. And you could see where she flips and she's now standing on those things and using them as a platform to share. So one of the questions that we're now going to pass to Sister Tomi is, what impact has sharing stories, so storytelling, had on your personal and professional life? What impact has that had?
It's had such an impact. When I wanted to write my first book, this is my second book actually, I was a bit unsure. First of all, I wasn't sure if my story was worth telling. I wasn't sure if it was impactful enough, special enough. But I've been in business for so many years, and in a way, I think I share my story one by one with everybody that walks through the door when I'm there. And I see how being vulnerable and the connection that is formed once somebody knows you're kind of going through what they're going through, So in writing the book, the idea was to demystify whatever it is you think I might be, whatever you think I might have achieved. I'm really just the girl next door. I'm you, you're me. We're going through this thing together. We're trying to figure it out. And the response was incredible. Everybody kind of identified with what I had gone through. In fact, it took me aback. So in writing the second story, I think I went even deeper. I got more vulnerable. And in fact, it's taken me through a journey of vulnerability across board, not just with telling my story through a book, with deepening relationships, sharing my vulnerabilities with friends. It's not enough just to share the good days or the wins. I find that when you share your struggles, of course, within reason and a safe space, with people you love and trust, that it deepens those bonds. It opens you also up to people who can support you and help you, because we all need support. There's nobody I know, no matter how much they have achieved, that doesn't need help in one way or the other. So one of the big things telling my story has done is, apart from helping me demystify myself and success and bringing me down for whatever pedestal anybody might have put me on, but it's also helped me form deep friendships. And that journey in vulnerability, that sharing my story, if there's one thing I'm grateful for, it's that. A lot of people in this room are my friends, and it's really just helped me form those relationships that are now my greatest assets, I would say.
Thank you. You have absolutely answered that question. And actually, it moves me on to another question. I'm going to actually ask this to both of you. And then, audience, I'm going to come to you for you to also ask your questions. So be thinking through some questions. We'll come to you in a moment. So for both of you, you're talking about sharing your story. One of the things that you actually mentioned was the safe space. Now, to share a story with impact does mean moving to that place of vulnerability, as you've said. So what we'd like to all understand in the room is, how did you overcome the elements that might make you not want to become as vulnerable as you need to make the type of impact you need to make?
Very slick. I confess that it has been a struggle. It didn't come naturally to me. Of course, initially, when I started to get the kind of responses that you all gave, it was a trip. Oh, well, they like this. Let's carry on. But I faced the likelihood of being judged. Now, my business, you mentioned the Baby Cut Shop. The Baby Cut Shop is a luxury baby and children's furniture brand. And my clients look absolutely nothing like I do. And so I faced struggles with that as well. does my story align with the kind of products that I sell? And I would have imaginary questions. How dare you charge those kinds of prices when you've lost everything? And many questions like that, many incidents of self-doubt would show up. I remember one day I had a client who we had just done her nursery in Chelsea, and it was quite a large project. And we had an issue with delivery because there were a lot of things going on. And she was just calling me like, I don't care, because when you're paying that kind of money, they really almost own you. This has to be at my house by 4 o'clock. I think we were like 30 minutes off or something. And I remember feeling so overwhelmed and scared. And I sat in the car and I said, God, when am I going to stop feeling this way when things go wrong? And God said to me, the issue is that you've placed a value on what they've paid you. So they have paid you, for example, 40K for a cut or whatever it is. You don't understand that you're giving them 40K worth of products. Right. You think that you owe them. You think they've done you a favor, and you feel smaller than you need to be. And so, but telling my story, even for now with the brand, it's something only now I've started to do because I realize that the big brands out there are trying to humanize their brands. But for us small companies, small businesses, we already have a personality, and that's an advantage. Right. So now I'm starting to show my face more, because if you ever go onto the Baby Culture of Instagram, you're going to be surprised. You would barely find me on there. I've created 2 very separate brands. Our second reason is really because if anything were to happen to the Baby Culture, I want to walk away whole. But yeah, so it has been tough, but it's just knowing that people are truly impacted by authentic storytelling. That's the one driver that's helped me. My clients are expectant moms. Many of them are first-time parents. And if you're a parent here, you know what that's like, the uncertainty that comes with motherhood, the fears, the many confusing bits of information you get. So when they come into the shop, I'm now able to be myself and say to them, I have 4 children, and this is what it felt like when I had the first son, and this is the advice I'm going to give them. I'm going to give you. One more thing is also that I realized that I had used cash as a marker for worthiness generally, because I'm dealing with an affluent audience. And so I had glorified my clients more than I would, more than they needed to have been glorified, because they had multiple millions or billions. And so it's learning that, one, there are other currencies besides cash. My personality is priceless. My story is priceless. My experiences, you will not find another one like that. The advice that I give you, you're not going to get it anywhere else, because it's unique to me. And these are precious gems that actually have no value. You can't, no price on them. You can't put a price on it.
Okay, so for me, it started off just being very selfish. Writing is therapeutic for me. So when I want to let go, relax, let it all out, I write, I journal. And so for the longest time, I journaled, I would write just because I love to write, and like I said, it's therapeutic. So I think when Facebook started, I started blogging on Facebook, and I was just sharing my stories, surface stories really, but stories about my business, stories about my insights, my thoughts, my experiences. And I noticed that it was getting a lot of attention. And one day, some person, I don't know who she is, I wish I could find who this person was. She sent me a message on Facebook. She said, I love your writing, and I feel guilty reading them for free. Those were her words. I don't know who she is. I think that was the first time a seed was sown to somehow monetize my writing. But she sowed that seed, and subsequently I noticed more and more people would comment about my writing and how it helped them and how it was relatable. So for me, I think sharing my story just gave me that voice, and it gave me an avenue to explore another side of myself that wasn't just, Tomi, Rotmi, making clothes. This was my writing, my story, my words. This was another gift that people were putting some value on. So I think for me, that made it, I wouldn't say easy, but just getting that validation just allowed me to share a little bit more of my journey.
Wonderful. Can we give speakers both a round of applause? There are a few things that have come to mind from both of their sharings. One was that they both started to see the value in what they had to share. Started to look at what they took as ordinary, as actually uncommon. And then they started to look at how can this impact others. So again, we started off today looking at, if everything was in the most optimal way it could be, what would we do? And this event is really for us to be inspired. They are sitting here and they are talking about their businesses because that thing that was an idea, they've had the boldness to go out, the boldness to be vulnerable, and then they've had it validated. So what both of them shared was that once they had made that step, validation came and encouraged them to carry on going. So, audience, do we have any additional questions that you want to ask? We will take maximum of 2 because we have to move on with the program. Yes. Thank you. There you are.
Well, hello. Well, I'm glad to be here. And, I'm sorry, my name is Nike Aremu. And I forgot your name. Tokes. As soon as you started speaking, I said to myself, Self, you're in the right place, because you know why? I too just moved here from Georgia. I also own a business in Georgia. I'm currently going through that. I miss my house in Johns Creek. I lived in Johns Creek. I'm not sure where you were. But it's very inspiring to hear your story. And so I thank you for sharing. And so my question to you, along with many other questions I would like to ask off record, what was the biggest challenge you faced when you moved here to start your business? What was the not even just business, because my children are still in Atlanta and New York, but what was the biggest challenge you faced when you got here? You thought was the biggest hurdle, not just business-wise, maybe personal, just the one thing you say to yourself, wow, I wish I was still in Atlanta, as we say.
So lovely to meet you. The biggest hurdle had to have been my mindset. I was afraid that I would sink into a place I wouldn't be able to come out of again. I was scared that my experience was a definition of who I now was, and I would not be able to rise above it. So that definitely was the biggest thing. But what was interesting is we spent many nights and days praying and crying and waiting for things to revert so we could go back. But the day that I accepted that this was the situation I was now in, I received a surge of energy to start again.
Amazing. And do we have one final question before we move on in the program? I can see one, yes? Brilliant. Please introduce yourself as well.
Hi, I'm Yinka. I'm actually Ayotomi's sister-in-law. It's actually not a question per se, it's a statement. One of my favorite sayings is, when you find yourself at the edge of a cliff and you're falling, God will either catch you when you fall or he'll teach you how to fly. And I think that both your stories, you were both at the edge of a cliff. You fell, Tokumbo, and he taught you how to fly. You asked God to teach you how to fly. There's a difference. My question, that was the statement that I just felt that you were both at an edge of a cliff. One fell, one didn't fall, but still needed help. My question to you, Tokumbo, is I find that when things are really bad for me, I still look at the good. And I find it really difficult to complain because I'm blessed and highly favored. How did you deal with that? Being pregnant, because that's a blessing. How did you feel knowing that you're blessed and highly favored, but damn, I'm in a mess? How did you separate that, especially when you're talking to people as well? They'll say, it is well with you. Look at your husband. You have 4 children. You're doing well. So you have that, but the mind, you know that it's not well with you, so to speak. How did you deal with that?
Thank you. That's a great question. Nice to meet you. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. And all our yesterdays are in God. All our todays are in God, and our tomorrows are also in God. And my faith helped me. And I confess that I came to a point where I stopped reading the Bible, and I started only reading the words of Christ in red. Because I said, I don't know what Paul drank or smoked when he was writing all those epistles, but at least I know the words of Jesus are real, so, I can trust that one. I focused a lot on those words, and I would imagine that Jesus was with me. I had a lot of anger, disappointment, pain. I thought that God was supposed to prevent these things from happening. I didn't understand that life was not a straight line. Because many of us have grown up believing that life is a straight line. It's supposed to be perfect. And then what we do is we use all of our energy trying to correct things that are not broken. And we're trying to straighten out bends that we think are meant to be straight. So learning and seeing the little blessings in those moments just reassured me that God was with me. My greatest fear in that moment was he wasn't with me, and I was doing this on my own. And that was the big thing for me was, is the Bible even true for me today? Is there any point in me continuing on this journey? And it was really just finding the little things. So I'll give an example. I built my website myself. Now you have to listen to the TED Talk because it gives you the whole story. But I built my website myself at a time when website building was rocket science, because I had gone to various web designers and I didn't have the money. And the final guy said to me, told me how much it was, £1,000. And he said, but how much would you like to pay since you're my friend's friend? I couldn't tell him £10. So I just said, I will think about it and come back to you later. But then I thought, and these are the moments when I could see God moving, was I thought about him. I thought about Patrick. On the TED Talk, I don't use Patrick. I use a different name because I don't want to be sued by an American in Texas. So I thought about him, Patrick. I thought about all the different web designers that had anything to do with my business over the years and reached one conclusion. Not one of them was born with the ability to build websites. They had to learn, and I could learn. So I went on Google and typed in how to build a website, and I was able to do it. I believe that was God teaching me, and at the end of that I discovered that, well, if I was able to learn how to build a website, I wonder what else I could learn to do. I wonder what other hidden gems are in me and I'm completely unaware of because I haven't had the cause to reach out to grab them. And so little things like that, I was seeing God move. I saw God move in the rejections when they said to me, sorry, you need to buy stock worth of 20K or have a physical location. And God would say to me, see, when you leave that place, write down their objection and think of a comeback. So you lead, when you go to the next manufacturer, you lead with that comeback. And all these very unique ideas I was getting and we're working.
Wow. So everybody, this brings us to the conclusion of the first section of tonight. So I want for you all to take away some key things here. There were a lot of things to do with a knowing of yourself, actually seeing in all the chaos that is going on, you really are you. And there is so much to give. Above all, what are some of the adjectives you can imagine came to mind in terms of the steps these ladies took? What words come to mind listening to their stories that they had to step into? Words, adjectives, anything. Shout it out. They had to be courage. What else? They had to resilient. What else? Grit, vulnerable. Anything else? Don't care. I don't care. I don't care. And anything else? Final words. Unique. The thing is, we're all unique, and that's something that we want everybody to be keeping in mind as we continue on the journey through this event. So, Tokes, at this point, we're going to say goodbye to you. Thank you so much. Round of applause. And that was our first fireside chat. We are actually going to be welcoming up to the stage Yeti Williams. So yeah, she was about to go and creep in. Now, Yeti Williams joins us on the stage. Again, another dear friend of Sister Tomi. Now, she's actually the founder of Lagos Mums. She herself can tell you a bit more about that. But ultimately, it has become an entrepreneurship community that has expanded into conferences. Herself, she is a coach and a mentor, a businesswoman in her own right, and really has gone out and stepped into that realm of business and standing up as a woman, confidently doing her thing. So we are going to hear a bit more about her. We're first going to hear from chapter 27, the parent-teacher dynamic. This is from Sister Tomi. And then Yeti will lead the next fireside chat. And then I'll come back to wrap that up at the end. So I'll hand over to Sister Tomi for the reading. And then we'll have Yeti to then take us into the next session. We'll just leave you the stage.
Thank you. So this is a bit of a long one. And for anybody who has the book, it's chapter 27, page 164. I'm starting from, Mommy, are you ready? So here it goes. Mommy, are you ready? It's time for lessons, Daniel reminded me softly. I had opted to be his tutor instead of getting one. It was not easy being a parent teacher because sometimes those two roles conflicted. As his mother, I was emotionally vested in his progress, but as his tutor, I couldn't afford to be. Mrs. Aluko had made good on her promise to increase his workload. Now he had more homework to tackle and was struggling to catch up. I drew out the chair at the head of the dining table and sat next to him. We were studying for a science test holding the next day after just finishing with his English assignment. Classification of living things sounds like an interesting topic, Daniel. You know what? Read the note while I make you a sandwich. Then I will ask you questions. I left him and made my way to the kitchen. It didn't take me long to make his sandwich. Thankfully, he liked his ham and cheese toasted, so this bought me some time. Time for him to read the notes and time for me to say a prayer. Lord, help me help him, I muttered under my breath. These lessons drained me. The sandwich was ready, but I wasn't, so I popped into Isabel's room and checked up on her. She had a workstation there and was busy with her homework. Is that for me, Mama? She asked, her eyes darting from me to the sandwich on the plate I was holding. Then she got up to grab it before I could answer. Well, I guess it is now, I responded with a smile. I bought more time returning to the kitchen to make another. Nice and crispy, just like you like it, D-boy, I said as I placed the plate down and settled back in the chair next to him. Are you ready? He looked up at me nervously. I think so. So I'll ask the question and you will write down the answers. I started reading the question slowly, studying his face as I did. Living things are classified into how many groups? I gave him a few seconds to write down his answers before asking the next question. What are the classifications? I waited again. Okay, read your answers. Can I eat some of the sandwich before it gets cold? I knew he was deflecting, but I nodded anyway. He took a bite and started chewing slowly. Can I have some juice, Mama? I looked at his chubby face and greasy lips and felt my exasperation rising. I wanted to scold him and tell him to answer the questions or face the naughty corner. But those tactics had failed in the past. Instead, I said, I have a new pack of Cherry Blast in the fridge, so you can have some. He got off the chair hurriedly and skipped off to the kitchen. I took the paper he had scribbled his answers on and turned it over. My heart sank. He had been doodling. I couldn't make out anything. No questions were answered, just incomprehensible scribbles. I cupped my face, closed my eyes, and let out a long sigh. Then I realized he was still in the kitchen. Daniel, hurry up with that juice and get back here. Do you want some juice too, Mama? Nope, just you. We have a lot to get through. He came back with the cup in his hand, his lips now stained purple with its content. Now I settled back. I asked again, pretending not to have read his script. Read out your answers. The first one or the second one? Let's start with the first. Okay, Mama, the question was what again? I wanted to scream. Into how many groups are living things classified? I responded, reading the question slowly. Oh, okay, yes, there are, he started looking at me for clues. 7, dragging out the word like he was unsure. Correct. It was a lucky guess, but we both chose to pretend it wasn't. Well done. Now the second question. He looked at me hesitantly. You want me to repeat the question? He nodded. What are the classifications of living things? I took a quick look at my watch. It had been 45 minutes since we started, and we're still on the first assignment. Okay, Mommy, but I need to pee. Can I be excused, please? I cracked my knuckles anxiously. No, Daniel. When you answer the question, then you can be excused. But I really need to go. It must be all that juice. So answer quickly then. His shoulders dropped and his face bowed in defeat. He began to mutter almost inaudibly. The classifications of living things are kingdoms, classes. Go on, I urged. I've forgotten the rest, he said. I could tell he was embarrassed. He knew he had been caught amidst all his delay tactics. It's fine if you forget, but you should just admit that instead of wasting our time, I said, being careful to correct him without shaming him. Let's write them down and decide how best to memorize the points, I said with a smile. Okay, Mommy. So do you want a song or a poem? A cool song, Mom. He looked relaxed now. All the anxiety was gone, and oddly enough, so was the urge to pee. We began to sing, reading off the textbook, bobbing our heads in unison to the beats and catchy tune I had instinctively made up. Kingdoms, divisions, classes and order, family, group, species. These are the classifications of living things. That's funny, Mom. Let's go on again, he said, laughing hysterically. Kingdom, division, classes and order, family, group, species. These are the classifications of living things. We were singing and dancing. Daniel started drumming. I put a clench to my feet. I clenched my fist to my mouth, pretending it was a microphone, and attempted to break dance to the beat. Daniel mimicked my dance moves, laughing hysterically. These are the classifications of living things. We chorused the outro of our new song. Isabel walked in. You two are so noisy. I thought Daniel was studying. I am. It's science, and Mom is the best teacher, he said, slightly out of breath. Isabel joined the singing and dancing. All right, guys, let's get serious. You still have to answer the question on the paper. I was slightly out of breath. Daniel was visibly excited. Ask me again, Mommy, ask again. What are the classifications of living things? I responded. He sat down, scribbling with his chubby fingers, I could hear him humming the tune of our new song under his breath as he wrote. He was done in seconds. I looked at his note. All 7 classifications were written boldly and neatly. I marked them each with a big red tick and followed with 7/7, circled and signed off with excellent. Well done, Daniel, I said, clapping for him and drawing him in for a tight hug. I will never forget it. You are the best teacher, Mama. I glanced at my watch again. We got it done. It only took 2.5 hours.
Yes. Shay for me. You have to come up singing that song. All right, so we're going to introduce our guests today. Of course, we all know Tomi. I didn't know you could sing like that. Now I know. And our mystery guest, Shay for me, who is... There we go. Wow. That was a really, really good reading. Okay, so we're going to just have a chat now. Joy introduced me already. So my name is Yeti Williams. My motherhood journey has been my own story. I became a mother. In fact, my daughter turned 17 on Monday. My son will be 15 next month. And they were really my inspiration for starting Lagos Moms. I took a long maternity break when I had my second child. We lived in VGC. It was before the roads became what they are today. So traffic was terrible trying to get to work in Ikoyi. So I decided to stay home during that time. It was during that time I birthed Lagos Moms. And as they say, the rest is history. So in fact, today my children decide that they have to share my money with me since I based everything I teach and coach people based on them. So anyway, I'm really, really looking forward to this conversation today. And Tomi, I'm going to start with you. So can you tell us more about the challenges you faced as a parent navigating dyslexia? And how did you overcome them?
It's reading that story. I'm happy I read it. I haven't read this book or that chapter in a while. So I reread it for the purpose of this event. And when I read that chapter again, I found myself crying when I started singing that song. Because it's a real moment that took me back to a time that was quite difficult. And in hindsight, it didn't need to be. It was difficult because I was ignorant. And I think that was why it was important for me to share that story, because sometimes when you have information, it takes away the struggle. When you have the understanding of what this is, then it's really not a big deal. So for me, I almost forget the question you asked again. But yeah, dyslexia. So when I did find out after, the struggle of just trying to understand why my son wasn't as academically gifted as I thought he should have been, and we did get an assessment done and we found out it was dyslexia. My initial feeling was one of helplessness. Like, I had never heard the word before. So I was like, it sounded like such a complex word. Like, what the hell is this? But after studying and talking to other parents and just being a little bit more understanding of what this was, I realized it was just a different way of learning. And it also led me to even understand that I possibly was dyslexic myself, because I saw a lot of myself even through the assessment. But I think in hindsight, it was probably the best thing that happened to me as a mother, particularly as a mother to my son, because it forced me to look at other markers for success, not just the academics. And it was in that desperation to find other ways to inspire him and to manage even his own perception of himself at that very, very crucial age where they are already trying to figure out how they fit in within their peers and all of that. It forced me to look at what made him different, other talents and gifts that he had. And we did that. And we did that successfully. And I am now more than ever so grateful for that season, to the point where I wouldn't have it any other way.
Wow, that's really amazing. I can't get that song out of my head. So Daniel, Shefumi, I want to ask you a question. So 2 things. One is, do you remember that moment? And it's fine if you don't, but I would also like you to explain how your relationship with your mother has been through your journey.
I'd say in regards to that particular moment, it was definitely a surreal moment to reminisce on, just because it reminded me of how differently I had to navigate school life and making friends and just other aspects of my young life. I remember when I was in school, when I moved schools from Meadow to CIS, they made me use a laptop instead of just writing to do my schoolwork, just because my handwriting wasn't as legible. And there were so many moments where I was just looking at that as, why do I have to be different to everyone else? But in hindsight, I feel like God has taught me that it's important to own those aspects of your identity, because and in regards to how it's impacted my relationship with my mom, it's made us as close as we could possibly be. And initially, I resented it just a little bit, only because I felt like I wanted that independence. My mom is very hands-on. You know, she loves being involved with every aspect of my life. And at times it felt overbearing, just because I was trying to handle what was going on in my own head, trying to navigate all these differences that I have to live with. But I'm grateful now, because I feel comfortable telling my mom anything. There's nothing I want to explore or anything that I'm maybe apprehensive about that I can't go to her and talk about. So I definitely say it's been a crucial part in developing what is now a really strong bond between me and my mom. So.
Who else needs tissues? Because oh wow. Sorry. That's what it is. But I was privileged to be a mom at CIS when Shefumi was there, and he was a head boy. And I remember when I randomly fell in love with Tomi at her store. Like literally, I went to exclamations, and I met her there, and that's really how our friendship. You know when you say there are friendships that you intentionally curate. This is one of those ones, and I'm just so thankful to be your friend. And learning that Shefumi had dyslexia, when I read the book, I would never. Do you know what I mean? I would never. There's no way I would have known. Not that it means you should know, but I think it just shows the perception of what we think differences actually mean, So this brings me to this question, Tomi, which is just around education and the choice of school and the kind of support that you saw the 2 different sides, right? When he had support and when he didn't. And I would like for you to talk about the importance of that when parents are choosing schools for their children.
Well, in Nigeria, it was tough because, like most parents, I didn't even know what it was. And so when it came to looking for a school, I didn't even know what to look out for. So I first of all started by looking for a school with a strong SENCO. And I think we were just blessed that at the time we found CIS, the SENCO, the head of SENCO was just being hired, and she was this lovely German woman who herself was dyslexic and had a dyslexic daughter who was an undergrad. So she was super passionate about, helping children with dyslexia. And because Sheifumi was her very first student, she just took him under, like, this is my baby. And to be honest, I think most of the support was for me, not so much for him. Because for her, she didn't see what the big deal was. She would say, I would go to her panicking and say to her, what are we going to do about his handwriting? His handwriting. I can't read it. Who can read it? And she would say to me, Sheifumi's mommy, why are you stressing over a dying skill? I said, what do you mean by dying skill? She said, well, my daughter is an undergrad now, and she doesn't remember when last she wrote anything. And then she said, she threw it back at me, when last did you actually physically take pen and paper and write down an essay? I said, I've not written in a long time. She said, that's the point. So his writing may not be legible, but give him a few years, he doesn't even need to write. So what else is your problem? And this, every time I would come back to her and I'll say, oh, this and that. And she says, you know what? All we need is to guard his confidence through these academic years. She says, that's all our goal is, to protect his confidence through these academic years. Once we get past that, he will fly. And that's what's most important. And then again, she threw it back at me. She said, what you are doing right now, how much of it has to do with your degree? Not so much, okay? And she said, really, what is your selling point? Okay, your confidence, your human relations, how you're able to problem solve. Yes. She said, so those are the real skills that we need to develop. And, just going back to some of his even earlier tutors, his very first head of school, and I put that in the book, she said something to me, even this was before I even knew what dyslexia was, and when he struggled even at the nursery school level, she said to me, you have to make peace with the fact that Sheifumi is not going to be a professor. And once you can be okay with the fact that he's not going to be a professor, then you can start looking at other things that he's really good at, and then find a school that would nurture those things. Everything she said went over my head. I said, what are you talking about? He will be a professor in Jesus' name. So when I look back, I remember her words. She had seen something in him that was special, and she knew, okay, she couldn't see him past that nursery school level, but she was hoping that I would also see that special thing she saw and nurture that for him. So I think for me, in answering your question, the help I got was really from people helping me understand him. And the help I was able to give to him came from me understanding him and managing my expectations about what was possible. Now the sky is the limit. He's overcome those difficult academic years. He's bang in the middle of his passion, and the rest is history.
Okay, so I'm a parenting coach. So I'm going to label your parenting style. Which is the best one there is. No, it's true. Parenting really is about not what you think your child is. It's not about parenting the child you think or thought you would get. It's about parenting the child you have and helping them thrive in whatever shape or form that means, and getting out of the way. Even when you want to be in the way, but getting out of the way. You shall. But you're kind of on the way. But no, really, to share for me, this is going to be for you. And I want you to talk about your experiences, what you know now, how you would advise somebody today, if you also to go back and think about the young you, what would you say to him, and how would you use that to springboard to say, what advice would you give a young person today and potentially their family who are struggling with how do we navigate what is different from what we thought? There's a lot of things wrapped in there, but I know you can handle it.
Firstly, I want to speak on the transition between schools. When I left Meadowhall and I first joined CIS, it was kind of like a culture shock. Just because growing up, it was really hard for me to make friends. And the small friends that I did have, I wanted to hold on to them as much as I could. But I was too young to see that I needed help in developing my thought processes and just being able to take in information. So initially, it was a struggle for me to make my mark and kind of just make myself known, make my presence felt in the school. But over time, with the support that I had from my family and obviously the Senko that they had at CIS, I grew to realize that my differences didn't make me a hindrance to anybody's experiences, but rather they were going to boost my own individual, experiences. Differences don't make you less qualified than anyone there, but those differences are exactly why you are there. So really embrace who you are. I think something that really helped me as well was I was in an environment that developed passions that I didn't really realize I had. I grew a strong sense of leadership while I was at CIS, a desire to be there for somebody so they don't have to experience the things that I did. So I definitely say another thing that I would tell someone is understand that there's someone who is in your position right now asking for someone to guide them. So understand that those differences are knowledge that empowers you to be there for someone. And finally, I think growing up, the greatest thing I've had in my life is an individual relationship with Jesus. I think understanding that his word really holds value and that you are beautifully and wonderfully made. All the things that you feel make you outside of what society tells you to be are exactly what God is going to use to prosper you. I think those three individual lessons have definitely shaped me into what I think God is making me to be. So those are the main things I'd advise anyone.
I think it's a whole carton of onions, right, that they are cutting. All right, do we have time for questions? Yeah, okay. So one more question as we wrap up for both of you. And it's going to be, can you share one surprising or the most surprising lesson that you've individually learned from this journey? Think of your question,
I think probably the most surprising thing for me has been understanding that there's a community of people just like me. I felt kind of like an outcast in school a lot of the time. And I felt like my differences that kept me outside of the norm were just they were stopping me from making friends. But as I've grown up, as I've been in the environments that I've been lucky to be in, I've realized that there are so many people who are just like me, but in different fonts. And I've learned the importance of embracing that community, understanding that everybody has their own differences. Not everyone is meant to be the same. So it's allowed me to be more open-minded in making friends and, exploring different avenues that I probably wouldn't have if I didn't have this knowledge. So I'd say the importance of community and seeing the light in everybody's differences has probably been the most surprising lesson, because I was so short-sighted in that. I thought everybody was the same just because they weren't like me. So I'd probably say that's the most surprising thing, yeah.
For me, I think it's how much love, we have for our children. Sometimes they need to let go. I find that at some point you really need to let go and let them experience some of those mistakes or challenges themselves, and just to see how God helps them navigate, how God sorts them out in spite of you. You know, so for me, I think the big lesson was just you've done enough. You've everything you have done is enough for them for the next phase, and to make peace with that. So that was a big lesson, and it's a lesson God is still teaching me every day. Yeah.
Wow. Can we just... Such an amazing, such an amazing session. I know we could go on and on, right? But we need to wrap up. So do we have any question at all from the audience? Comments? Okay.
And you also have profound emotional intelligence. Yeah.
All right. So I think that's the end of the session. It was really amazing. Thank you so much. I mean,